From every strand on the line of your reel, to the rods, to the anglers, to the lures on the end of your hook, let's talk about those big bass here on Co-Anglers Corner with your hosts, Rob Welch and John Stoudinger.
Good evening, everybody. I'm John. Cajun Rob isn't here tonight. Not feeling very well, I believe. But tonight's guest is Brock Bila. He's a professional angler. Great platforms on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. One of his big passions is glide bait fishing. He does a great job of breaking it down, and we're going to talk to him tonight about some of his past experiences with glide baits, as well as his recent top 10 finish. So let's welcome Brock to the stage. Good evening, sir.
Hey. Thank you guys for having me.
Yes, I appreciate it. Appreciate you coming on. So if you don't mind going through and telling a little bit about your history and go from there.
So I grew up in eastern Kansas. There's not a whole lot of bass fishing out there. We have like Melbourne Lake, Perry, Hillsdale, those type of lakes. A lot of spot-oriented lakes, and I kind of grew up there and fished. In the first year, youth bass fishing became an option. I was the first year I was in there, trying to participate in that, and then made it my way through high school, and then ended up going to Drury University and fished for 4 years over there, traveling across the country and learning different types of bodies of waters and how to break them down, because that's a very hard part of fishing on the professional levels, going outside of your comfort zone and being able to go fish. And then after I learned that, last year fished on the NPFL and had a solid season. And this year I took part of the Bassmaster Opens and pursuing the dream of making it to the Elite Series. Congratulations. Thank you.
That's something I think all anglers, young anglers wanted to do in their time, but not many do.
Yep, there's a lot of for what it is for me personally, and I think there's a lot of guys that agree that the Elite Series is the cream of the crop of that's where you want to end up. That's where you want to fish. That's the best of the best, and that's just where I want to sit. But
yeah, I believe your odds are making the NBA or the MLB are better than making the elites. But no, once again, I appreciate you coming on. Do you want to go talk about your last tournament you just had, where you had a top 10?
Yeah, so that was a Toyota Series on Kentucky Lake. And funny backstory behind the Toyota Series, I had no intentions actually of fishing the Toyota Series this year until my best friend Jacob Welch called me up, and he was like, "Hey, I really think you should go fish these. It's a good schedule. It's, works around the Opens, works around all the tournaments." I'm like, why not? I've never fished a Toyota. Let's let it happen. And the first one was on Lake the Ozarks in mid-March, I believe, and I think I got 18th place in that one. And it was a grinder. I mean, I think I got 18th place with 10 bass out of 15. I actually fished the third day, made that cut. But this last tournament was on Kentucky Lake, and got to I was coming off of Norfolk Lake of the Bassmaster Open, and it was a one-day tournament. Day 2 got canceled, and when you go and practice for these long-term tournaments, you try to not necessarily hold fish back, but play the long game of catching, a solid limit above average, and then just slowly making your way up. And day 2 of the tournament ended up getting canceled, so I had to switch my game plan up, or I had to I tried to, or the day one, I only caught 12 pounds, 11 something, and did decent. And then day two got canceled. So then I was like, well, that's not a good finish at all. So going to Kentucky Lake, I was basically a fresh mindset. I had, I was just going fishing at that point. And so it was back to back, drove straight from Norfolk to Kentucky Lake, went out there, only had basically a day and a half of practice out of 3 days. And in the open that was there a month ago, I got completely rambled on some of the bites. So I ended up the bite during the open was those offshore stumps, offshore shell bars, and that type of deal on Kentucky Lake. That's what it's known for. But I ended up catching some fish shallow on a crankbait and a chatterbait and a spinnerbait and doing that whole deal. So that's what I ran with. And in turn, it was caught. There was one, and a lot of checks were made on the stumps. So I told myself I was going to go scan some of those bars and try to find groups of fish and stumps. And that's all I did for that day and a half of practice. And in this region where we are in Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, that area, we got a ton of ring. I mean, a ton. Yeah. So I ended up the day one of the tournament, the water came up like 1.5 foot, 2 foot overnight. Just like that. The water got muddy down there by the dam, and I was just like, well, I'm just going to scrap everything I had in practice, and I'm just going to go fishing. And I picked up a chatterbait with a Yamamoto Zaco on the back and a Bill Lewis ATV squarebill, and I just went fishing and just chartreuse and white, fishing the bank. And I found in the first day, I found 4 to 5 stretches that were good, that had a bunch of fish on it. And I just milked it for all it was worth. And I went back and back and back, and I fished those same stretches and ended up with like almost 17 pounds that first day, and was sitting 28th, I believe. And then day two, same thing. Water came up another 1.5 foot, 2 foot, and ran with the same program, just covering water, and fished those banks and expanded it a little bit to 2 or 3 more, and only had 14 and change, I want to say, on that second day. And then once again, day 3, water came up another 1.5 foot, 2 foot. So it was dang near 6 foot by the time the tournament was over. But just kept on doing that whole deal and stayed consistent. Got 16 pounds, 10 ounces on that final day, and worked my way up to 10th place. And it was a really fun week, not staring at that live scope, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's for some reason the outside anglers, the ones who aren't fishing tournaments, think that if you're catching fish, it's always on live scope nowadays.
Yeah,
and it's not always true.
No, it's a lot of people think the young guys are just catching them scoping, which don't get me wrong, majority of the time they're probably right. But there's tournaments like this that set up where when the water comes up and it gets muddy, you go shallow, and that's the best way to catch those fish. And I never scoped a single fish that I weighed in or caught in the tournament, not one.
All right. So, guys, you can compete without a live scope.
Yes, that is now a fact.
Yes, and I appreciate you coming on here and saying that. So, what's your plans for the rest of the year? Are you going to try to continue with the Toyotas, or?
Yeah, so the schedule it's an odd schedule this year. The Bassmaster Opens is super spring heavy, and then we have one in August on Leech Lake. And then other than that, the Toyota Series only has 3 events, which is that Lake the Ozarks in March, Toyota here about a week or 2 ago, and then the last one's on Lake the Ozarks in September. So as far as big tournaments go, I have the Open in August, and then that Lake the Ozarks Toyota, and then I have a bunch of local stuff, local tournaments, and smaller smaller stuff planned for the middle, that gap right there. And then also a really fun trip. I think my fiance and I are going to try to go up to do a Northwest trip and go through Minnesota and then all the way to Idaho and fish some of those big lakes and take a week and a half, 2 weeks, and just travel and camp and just have fun, just enjoy it.
Oh, that's a terrible way to go.
Yeah, it's something we've been planning for 2-3 years now, but finally the way the schedule worked out, I was like, oh, this would be perfect. So
yeah, so it wouldn't be a bad year if you qualified for the elites and made the Toyota Championship.
No, I wouldn't be mad at all. I got a little bit of work to do on the Bassmaster side, but I think a top 20 or top 30 could potentially get me there. Top 10, I'd feel semi-confident. But
yeah. So what do you think about this new format?
On the open side?
Yes.
It's good and bad. So the good part about it is it lets a lot of anglers that might not be able to compete in that 9, not necessarily compete, but financially and time off work compete on that level. And I completely agree with that. Like that's I have a full-time job, and that's it's I totally get it. But the second part of it is when you only have 4 tournaments in the springtime, and this year showcased that, honestly. You have a bunch of weather that comes in, and that consistency of quality of angler goes down on the guys that make it. Not saying that anybody that does make it isn't a good angler, but they're looking in the elites trying to get guys that are consistent across the country. And these 4 tournaments that we're fishing right now are regional, and they're very time of year where a guy can get in there and for 4 tournaments, he could get lucky in 1 or 2 of them and stay consistent, make that top 50. And then, that obviously in those last 3 in the EQ qualifiers, that's when it's going to cut out those guys. But personally, I would prefer that 9 tournament, the gauntlet, as they called it, traveling across the country from Florida up north to New York and just fishing, because as an angler myself, I'm a consistency guy. I'm not known for going out and catching giant bags and winning tournaments, but staying in that check line, making checks and moving on. That's my game. That's
the name of the game, though, making checks.
Yep.
It's a lot easier to pay bills cashing a check than when it isn't.
100%.
Yeah. I just want to thank Travis Birch. He's the one who had me contact you, and you two are good friends. So thank you, Travis. Appreciate all the insight you've given us and the help. But yes. What's your next tournament?
Next big one is August on Leech Lake.
Okay.
Other than that, my next current one is on Table Rock this weekend. It's called Somo Bassmaster, and it's a just fun local fundraiser type of tournament. And I just literally drove back this evening from filming on Table Rock today. Throwing a Nico rig and a glide, and we had a heck of a day. I mean, we had like 26 pounds fishing. So it was a fun day today, so I'm looking forward to that this weekend.
Oh, I don't blame you. I mean, 26 pounds, no matter where you go, is a pretty good bag.
Yeah. Table Rock, it's like if you catch 22, 23, you're going to win basically. And this past weekend, it took 24 to win. So I was excited to get on that caliber of fish.
Nice. Yeah, that's definitely a hard thing to do at times. I do have a question for you about, since you travel all over the country, do you think it's easier fishing down south or up north? Because up north, you're generally looking at 20, maybe 30 bites a day. Or down south, you're looking at 5 or 6. What do you think is easier on the mind for you?
Definitely down south, because everything that we media wise and Bass University and Wire to Fish and all those outlets, a lot of that information is geared towards largemouth fisheries in the south.
Yep.
For the most part. And so a lot of us know how that game works. We might not know it fully, but we have a good idea. Versus up north, there is content and videos and reports up there, but it's a whole nother ball game when you get up north, because the water's so big. You have smallmouth that move miles and miles and miles daily, and it's just like you only know so much. And when you don't know that much about fishing up north, with smallmouth down south, you can semi-gauge what they're going to do.
Yeah. I think there was I think I read a study years ago that the average smallmouth can travel up to 6 miles a day, where a largemouth would be lucky to hit one.
Yeah. It's crazy, because you go find smallmouth on like a hump or a rock pile or something, and you'll catch 25 pounds one day. And you're like, oh, I'm freaking on them. They're here.
Yep.
Next day you go out there, ghost town.
Gone. Yep. And it's gotten a lot better up here because of the gobies. The gobies are keeping some of the fish at home, whereas 10 years ago, you'd rarely see somebody target smallmouth in a tournament because they were so nomadic.
Yeah.
But
and I wonder how much live scope puts live scope, especially with the smallmouth, plays with that, just because you can track them / you could get lucky here and there with a smallmouth bite type of deal in order to catch a big one. But it's very interesting.
Yeah. Me being a co-angler and fishing out of the back, you can always tell when somebody's searching. Got the trolling motor on 10 and staring at the graph. They're in here somewhere.
Yep, panning back and forth.
Yep. Myself, I don't mind the sonar, because I'd rather be know I'm around fish than cast and hope.
Yep.
So is there a body of water that you've been to that you don't care to go back to?
Ooh. Honestly, Harris Chain of Lakes. That's some guys might not agree with that, but that's my body of water that I would not like to go to, because it's kind of like the smallmouth, honestly. That place is so heavily pressured, and there's not a whole lot of variety of what to fish. So there's very little patterns unless you have like a shad spawn on those pencil reeds, and that's obvious. You can go run that and do that. But every time I've been there, it's been off time of year where you're looking for one singular shell bed on the entire chain. So you're looking, I can't remember, you have seven or 8 lakes in that Harris chain, and you're looking for one spot. That's a needle in a haystack. And it's a freaking grind when you go out there and fishing, because it's, a good bag is like 13 pounds, but the winning bag is 25 pounds a day. So there's a large gap there. But out of everywhere I've been to, Harris Chain's probably the one I don't want to go back.
All right. See, for me, it's Gunnersville.
Really?
Yeah. Being a co-angler, I was behind the guy who won the Toyota Championship that year. And I got stubborn. I didn't want to he had a lot more invested in it than I did. And I didn't want to interrupt him. And he was just flipping the grass, And I just kept on bombing out a frog. I lost about 20 pounds of fish. Yeah. I mean, up north, being in New York, I don't get the frog fish that often.
Yeah.
So let me just tell you, that was not my, that's not my favorite technique.
I understand that. And, especially when he's flipping shallow like that, I mean, besides the bite that he's fishing for, all you really got to do is throw in a frog,
Yep.
trying to catch some other fish. But
I think we were fishing for maybe a little over an hour, and I think he had like 21 pounds in the boat. And he's like, "You need to start flipping." I'm like, "Nope, I'm not going to be the one to cause you not to win a tournament." But no.
I actually for anybody that doesn't know, I fished as a co-angler for 3 years. And so when I was 16 years old, I made the Bass Nation championship. And then when I was 17, I fished the regional on Gunnersville. And that was the last year I was ever a co-angler because I had like decent day one. I had like 13, 14 pounds as a co-angler. And I was like, okay, guys had like, it's Gunnersville. They had 22, 23 pounds, but
right.
As a co-angler, consistency is key, right?
Yes.
And I pulled a guy that was from Alabama, and I was like, oh, like that's normally a good deal whenever you go to a lake and you pull a guy from the state. And I called him that evening before. He's like, hey, I just got a new boat. I'm still breaking it in, but we should be good to go. I'll be able to run. And here's what we're doing. We're going up to a little tiny creek. It's about a 40-minute run, but there's a bunch of fish in there. I'm like, perfect. Sounds good to me. Yeah. Whatever. That's his deal. And come to find out is he blanked the first day, and he was just basically trying to run history of he caught some fish up in this creek, and he was from Alabama, but way far away from Gunnersville. So this was like second or third time on Gunnersville, and we went up this creek, and he started trolling motor up out of the water, pulling. And he's like, hey, do you mind getting out of the back of the boat and pushing the boat as we're going? And I'm like, yeah, I didn't know at the time, but that's actually illegal, is to push into somewhere. But I was 16 at the time, turning 17. And I was just like, yeah, sure, no problem. And so I pushed this boat for an hour and a half with him on the trolling motor. We got back in this creek and started fishing. And this creek is as wide as the boat. So by the time, as a co-angler, you're sitting in the back and it's as wide as the boat, trolling through, blows all the water. So then all the water in the back, there's not any.
It's unfishable.
Yep. So he fishes all the way through, comes all the way back out. And I push him an hour and a half back out of that creek. We get out and we pull up to a stretch where he's punching and his trolling motor dies. And it's 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I got so frustrated because I'm like, all right, here's my chance. And then we're done. And we legitimately tied up to a bridge at Gunnersville and started fishing. We fished that for like an hour. So here comes noon. And then he was done with it at that point. And he's like, well, what do you think about going and grabbing a burger? And I'm just, I'm young. I was just like, whatever. And we legitimately, in the tournament, pulled up to a marina, went in and ate a cheeseburger in a regional for Bassmaster. And I was like, all right, that's the last time I'll ever do that. Because that was a bad taste in my mouth.
I can understand that. And it's not always unicorns and rainbows out of the back of the boat. So
it's just part of it, sadly. I wish everything was good, but it is what it is.
Yep. So I want to talk about glide baits a little bit. I'm in New York, and it's something I've seen people start to use now for the big smallies, but I haven't really done it myself. Any suggestions, tips, or anything like that?
Yeah, so up north, I'm guessing you have alewife in your fisheries?
Yes. Yep.
So I've had this conversation actually many times. So down here in our region, the main forage is gizzard shad, which is a lot taller profile compared to alewife. and they get super shallow, and they have different characteristics, of course. But up north, since the alewives are pretty skinny, like length or tall wise, but long, you kind of have to switch up the glide you're throwing. So like the typical clutch bosses or baby boss or those gizzard shad profiles don't really work as well up there. You can still go catch largemouth and stuff like that. But you have to look for, obviously you have to match the hatch. So you're looking for a glide bait that's a little bit not as tall, a little bit smaller, but lengthy, and also has a little bit more of a darty action where it shoots back and forth and you're able to cover water. Because that's what from what I know, that's what those alewife do, is they're very nomadic, fast moving, that they just go. And when I was up at Saginaw Bay, which isn't necessarily near you, but a great lake, that throwing a chartreuse darter, that was my ticket to catch a big one, and which I never used it in the tournament, just because I was just trying to fill a limit. But throwing that darter in practice, you would catch a dang giant if you went and did it.
Okay, nice. What's your typical setup for something like that? 7.6 heavy?
So for the darter, 7.3 to a 7.6, and actually like a medium heavy. So that bait's actually fairly light, and it's I would consider it like the same rod you throw a big spinnerbait on. So like a 3/4 ounce or a 1 ounce spinnerbait. Same type of setup, 15 to 17 pound test. In my personal opinion, fluorocarbon on that. But you don't need anything special to throw something like that.
All right. Well, we got a couple comments here I want to get through. Diehard Angler says, good evening. Daniel says, what's up, Mr. John and Mr. Brock?
Hey, yo.
And Brock Big Ol' Fish says, wow, crazy. You didn't know that one.
I don't know what that was regarding.
I'm guessing that popped up roughly about the alewives. So
okay.
Yeah, and OMG. So all right. So we covered a lake you don't really, or a body of water you don't really care to go back to. What's one you've been to that you can't wait to get back to?
Probably Pickwick.
Okay.
Pickwick, just because it's an interesting fishery in the way of it is a TVA, just like Gunnersville and Kentucky Lake, Wheeler, all those. But the way Pickwick sets up on that upper end is very predictable where the fish are going to be, and it's just fun. Because whenever I go there, I know I'll be around fish the entire time. I might not be able to get them to bite, but I'll be around them, and that's just one thing I love. I mean, who doesn't love catching fish? So
right.
Just love it. But that place is so fun.
Yeah. Oh, Brock said he was talking about pushing the boat for 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
All right, thanks, Brock, for following up with that one. All right. Okay, let's talk about lakes that you haven't been to that you'd like to, like a bucket list lake, and why.
So one thing personally is it's not as bad as Florida, but herring fisheries for me, I don't have the best record on. Per se. I know Murray, I had a second place finish, and Hartwell, I've had some really good finishes, but one place that I really want to go to is Lake Lanier. That's, to what I know, is a really historically good herring fishery with giant spots, and just big fish. And because every herring fishery other than Murray that I've gone to that have spotted bass is you only catch, 10, 12 inches, and catching a 14, 15 inch fish is a big deal. So, going to Lanier and catching a 5 pound spotted bass is definitely on the bucket list that I'd love to go to.
Can't blame you. Anytime you catch a 5 pounder. spot, largemouth, smallmouth,
Yeah.
Well, of course, I'm in New York, so catching a 5-pound largemouth isn't like down in Texas or Florida,
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Rusty Odom, our guest from last night, says, "What's up, guys?" Do you have any tips? If say somebody wanted to become a professional angler, what would you recommend them to do?
It's a very deep question nowadays. Just because, start off with, the definition of professional angler can be broken up in many, many ways. That's actually fishing on a professional tour. That could be a social media angler. That could be, there's a wide variety of it.
Right.
So I'm guessing it's referring to like fishing the Bassmaster Opens and Toyota
Correct.
Series, stuff like that.
Yeah, let's go that route.
And I'll be honest about it. Most of it is being able to financially pursue it and have the time to do it. I was actually just on the phone with a buddy on my way back from Table Rock, and he was like, "Yeah, it seems like when we were in college, we had all the ambition and all the time in the world, but we didn't have the money. And then now that we're out of college," he was saying, I still have, or I have the money now, but I don't have the time to do it." And so there seems to be a happy middle ground there, being able to do it. So that could be, obviously sponsors is a huge deal in fishing, but they're very, very hard to get, especially paying sponsors these days. And so if you're able to work your social media, grow that, post content that's very engaging and get viewers, then you're able to get some sponsors. And then you have the time where you don't have to work to go do it, or you have to work a normal job and then have that job be able to have that time off to go pursue it. And then after that, it's just time on the water. Like once you have the time and the ability and the financial assistance to go do it, it's just getting time on the water, learning these fisheries, and then, being able to go pre-practice lakes is a huge deal for the opens. And that's just the name of the game, is being in tune with the fish. And it sounds weird because just it doesn't even have to be on that same body of water, type of body of water, but just being in tune with where the fish are at, what stage they're in, and just kind of how they work. Then when you go to that tournament, it's just another day on the water. You're just going to work. You're just catching fish. That's it.
Yeah. What do you think the hardest part that people don't realize is when trying to become being a professional angler?
It's I might get some slack on this, but it's a lot more stress, time, and effort putting into it, becoming a professional angler, than what a normal job is. And that is, in my opinion, because I've done both, and becoming a professional angler is legitimately sun up to sundown every single day, and that has nothing to do with the fishing. And the fishing's the fun part. The after part is social media and having those conversations, and trying to just keep it going. That's for me, that's the hardest part, because I just love fishing. That's just
Right.
what I love to do. But as everybody knows, the financial part of bass fishing is not an easy task to get done.
Yeah, not everybody can make it on winnings.
Yes, no,
we should say very few can.
Yes, very few.
But no, it's tough. And like for me, when I was fishing the opens as a co-angler and stuff like that, the hard part for me, and this was really like 2015, 2017, leaving your family at home.
Yeah.
That like now I have a little girl. I shouldn't say little. She's almost as tall as I am, and she's 7. Of course, I'm not 6 foot either, but for me going away for a week at a time, it's kind of tough.
Oh yeah. I don't have any kids myself. I did just get engaged last June, but there is, even for what I'm doing, there is a part of missing home, especially on those 2, 3, 4 week trips.
Yep.
That's when it hits, because like, just making sure, you know the bills are paid at the house. You have, gas bill covered, electric bill covered, car payments, and just making sure everything's done, because when you're fishing, you have all of that on your plate, plus actually trying to pursue the fishing dream. It's not an easy task.
No, and I commend, and congratulate everybody who's even attempted it. Not to mention make it a viable living.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays, because it's not, like you said, it's not just the fishing. It's more of the social media aspect of it, and let's face it, social media is hard.
Yeah, everybody's doing it now, and you have to find a way to try to beat everybody else. That's just part of the game.
Yeah, I mean the young Ike and Ellie breakdancing on his boat, yelling and screaming. Those days are over.
Yeah, that's one thing. I've talked to some buddies. Is like the reach of. There's nothing against Bassmaster and MLF, but the reach of some of the coverage when it comes to that is not as much as what it used to be. Like you're saying with Ike and Ellie, because you have guys. An obvious example is Ben Milliken. Like he's able. The Bassmaster tournament side is nothing compared to what his living of fishing is doing. Whether you consider that professional fishing or not, that's up to whoever. But you have to find your own little niche of what you do best and be able to run with it, and that's what he's able to do, and quite a few other anglers are able to do. But it's a lot of work.
If like I was told when I was younger, if it's worth doing, it's worth putting the work in.
Yes, sir. Yep.
It's
a good statement.
Is there anything you want to talk about? Anything? I'll let you just cover some stuff if you want, and I pretty much asked what I wanted to. So I got one more question, but we'll wait towards the end.
Okay. Anything I want to talk about? Well, I'll say this. After fishing today, this is the earliest and biggest wave of spawn we've seen in this region, and that's Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Kansas. And they're biting. They are straight up biting right now. So making sure you guys get those glide baits and some of those swim baits out there. They are biting, so get out there a little bit earlier than what you typically would do, especially as you go up north. I think that spawn's going to happen just a little bit earlier this year. So make sure you guys are prepared, because it's coming.
Yeah, we had a strange winter. I mean, like today, I woke up to it was snowing. But yeah, my buddy and Rob in Kentucky had more snow than I did this year.
That's crazy. I don't get either, because we had one of the worst winters, even in Missouri, that we've had forever. And then this spring is the complete opposite, where it's just coming right now. And we had some warm weather, in which we did have a bunch of rain in that Norfolk tournament. I mean, it was so funny. I mean, it wasn't funny, but when we were leaving there, there was a group of, I want to say 6-7 anglers that were fishing the open, that were going to the Toyota that's kind of in our group. And we could not find a way out of Arkansas because all the flooded roads. And finally one guy figured it out, and there's nothing for service. And he was like, all right, here's the road. You have to go to this town, then plug this address in, go here, and then you should be good to go. And it was just a disaster. But I think the rain definitely helps with, moving up that time of year and that spawn and getting those fish to bite. Because, whenever they get up shallow or whenever the water rises, those fish are going to go up with it. And a little bit easier to catch. But.
Yep. Awesome. Well, hey, Brock, I appreciate you coming on. But my last question for you is, what's your favorite homemade cookie?
Ooh. Definitely snickerdoodle. It might be basic. I don't know, but
no, it's not. It's not basic. But it was funny because we had 1 week where every angler said snickerdoodle.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just when I was in like elementary school, middle school, whenever either my mom or my friends' moms would make those homemade warm snickerdoodles, that cinnamon on top of them, done deal.
Yep. All right. So I want to give you time to talk about your sponsors and stuff like that, because without them, you're not able to fish as much. And I want to make sure you get to be able to plug all of them in. So,
well, I appreciate
that. Take it
So
away.
my title sponsor, and they have supported me from my sophomore year of college, is baitworks.com, and they're an online tackle retailer. We carry, anything when it comes to glide baits, to minnows, to shaky heads, to anything, tungsten jigs, zoom. There's a large variety over there, and you can order. And the one thing that's big on them is they can ship that same day. So whatever order you have, as long as it's before 2:00, it is shipped that same day. You get a tracking number. And I think that's one big thing over other online retailers they have. So if you guys could support them, it'd mean the world to me. They've supported me. But I've got, of course, like you were talking about, John, is Travis with K-Guard Gutters. Awesome buddy of mine ever since actually before when I was in high school. Just, we were both around in that Lacine, Lewisburg, Kansas area. Great dude. K-Guard Gutters. They provide gutters in Kansas City, Springfield, St. Louis, surrounding areas like that. Great company to work with. And then Wholesale Batteries is based out of Kansas City, and I run Miller Tech Lithiums, and they have AGMs. But their big thing is, and that I've used them a bunch for, is when I have a battery go bad, I'm actually able to call them and take it to them, and they're able to either make that battery come back alive or recharge it or fix that dead cell or whatever they need to do. And then lastly, for the most part, is GSM Outdoors, Yamamoto Baits, Phoenix Rods, Bill Lewis. And I've been a full believer in their products for a long time now, and this is my second year working with them, and it's been a blessing this past year being able to work with the companies that I normally use anyways.
Yeah, that's a key thing is, I see people like post on social media, hey, I'm up and coming angler, will you sponsor me? Well, why would I sponsor you? You don't know anything about me.
Yeah, you got to know the product. You got to be able to catch fish on it.
And people can smell shady. So, all right, sir. Well, hey, I don't want to keep you too much longer. So you take care. Appreciate you coming on, and have a great night, and good luck qualifying for the elites.
All righty. Well, thank you very much for having me on, and thank you everybody for watching, and y'all have a good evening.
All right. Take care, Brock.
See ya.
Be safe. Yep. Bye-bye. All right, everyone. That was Brock Bila, professional angler. Hoping he makes the elites this year. Once again, Travis, thank you for hooking this one up. And everybody take care. Get some rest. And Rob, see you next week. And so be careful if you're out fishing. And yes, I just want to say, our prayers and condolences are going out to the anglers who were in the couple accidents today. One in the MLF event, one in the NPFL. So everybody be safe. I've not seen the official true story on what happened, so I'm not going to comment on it. Just, we're thinking of you guys in prayers, and everybody else be safe.